A day like any other. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a warm, golden glow over Maple Street. It was a typical Saturday afternoon in a modest suburban neighborhood, where the sounds of children playing and lawnmowers humming filled the air. Amid the cheerful chaos, a bright yellow bicycle zipped along the sidewalk, its rider giggling with delight. Leela Johnson, an energetic 8-year-old girl with dark curly hair tied back in colorful beads, pedaled her way down the familiar path, savoring the simple joys of childhood. She wore a bright blue dress adorned with butterflies, her favorite outfit for her weekend adventures. Lila was known in her neighborhood for her kindness and her boundless imagination, whether it was hosting impromptu dance parties in her living room or organizing treasure hunts for her friends. She was always the life of the party. Today, however, was different. Lila was feeling a little restless as she rode her bike. She wanted something exciting to happen, something that would break the monotony of her day. Little did she know that the ordinary afternoon would soon take a dramatic turn. As she glided down the street, Leela spotted a group of children playing tag in a nearby yard. Their laughter echoed, filling her heart with joy. She was about to join them when something unusual caught her eye. Just beyond the playful chaos, she noticed a car parked awkwardly at the end of the driveway. The vehicle seemed to shudder slightly, and a shadow appeared to flicker beneath it. Curiosity piqued, Leela pedaled closer. As she approached, her heart sank at what she saw. A frail elderly woman, Mrs. Harper, was trapped beneath the car, her face etched with pain and fear. Leila recognized Mrs. Harper, a sweet neighbor who always waved at her from her porch, often offering homemade cookies to the children in the neighborhood. Leila's heart raced, and a wave of panic washed over her. The sight of the elderly woman, her legs pinned beneath the weight of the car, stirred something deep within Leila. A sense of duty, a calling that urged her to act. But how could an 8-year-old girl do anything about it? Most adults hadn't yet noticed the commotion, lost in their own conversations or chores. Taking a deep breath, Leila set her bike down and rushed toward the car. "Mrs. Harper," she called out, her voice trembling. "I'm coming to help you." The elderly woman looked up, her eyes widening in surprise. "Oh, Leila, I'm stuck. I don't know what happened. I just wanted to get my groceries out of the trunk." And then the car rolled back. Leila's mind raced. She had seen enough superhero cartoons to know that saving the day often required quick thinking and courage. The first step was to assess the situation. She knelt beside the car, her small hands shaking as she pushed against the heavy vehicle, but it didn't budge. Leila felt a mix of fear and determination welling up inside her. "Don't worry, Mrs. Harper," she said, trying to sound confident. "I'm going to get you out." Just then, Leila noticed a couple of neighbors walking their dogs nearby. She waved her arms frantically. "Help! Someone help!" The dog walkers looked over, confusion etched on their faces, but it was clear they were too far away to understand the urgency of the situation. As Leila turned back to Mrs. Harper, she noticed the elderly woman was starting to panic, her breaths coming in short gasps. "I can't breathe properly, Leila. Please, I need help." A surge of adrenaline coursed through Leila. She had to act quickly. Remembering the neighborhood's picnic bench nearby, she sprinted to it, her small legs moving as fast as they could carry her. Once there, she struggled to lift the heavy bench, positioning it under the car in a desperate attempt to create a leverage point. "Okay, Mrs. Harper, I'm going to try again. Just hold on," Leila shouted, hoping to reassure her. She felt the weight of responsibility on her tiny shoulders. With every ounce of strength she could muster, she pushed against the car, gritting her teeth, her feet slipping on the grass beneath her. The car shifted slightly, and Leila felt a rush of hope. "I think I can do it," she exclaimed. But just as she was gaining momentum, she heard a familiar voice calling her name. "Leila, what's going on?" It was her best friend, Mia, riding her bike down the street. Without wasting a moment, Leila shouted back, "Mia, come help me. It's Mrs. Harper. She's stuck under the car." Mia's eyes widened as she hopped off her bike and sprinted over. "Oh no. What do we do?" Layla quickly explained the situation, and together they pushed against the car, shouting encouragement to Mrs. Harper. "Just a little more," Leela cried. "We can do this." But the car remained stubbornly still. Just then, a man walking by with his dog noticed the commotion. "What's happening?" he asked, rushing over. "Mrs. Harper is stuck," Mia shouted, pointing urgently. The man, seeing the panic in Leela's eyes and the distress of the elderly woman, quickly joined them. "Okay, everyone, on 3. 1, 2, 3. With the added strength of the man, they pushed with all their might. Leela felt the car shift more than before. "Keep going," she encouraged, her heart racing with determination. Suddenly, there was a loud crunch, and with a final heave, the car rolled free from Mrs. Harper's legs. Leila collapsed onto the grass, gasping for breath as she looked up at Mrs. Harper, who was now free but shaken. "Thank you, Leila. Thank you," Mrs. Harper cried, tears of relief streaming down her cheeks. "You're my little hero." The onlookers began to gather, murmurs of surprise and admiration rippling through the crowd. Lila's heart swelled with pride, but there was still an inkling of uncertainty in her mind. As the paramedics arrived to check on Mrs. Harper, Leela realized that this moment would change her life forever. In that brief instant of bravery, she felt a sense of purpose igniting within her, a realization that even the smallest person could make a tremendous difference. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden hue over the neighborhood, Leila couldn't help but smile. She had become a hero, not just for Mrs. Harper, but for herself as well. This was only the beginning of a remarkable journey, one that would lead her to discover her true potential. In the days that followed, the story of Leila's bravery spread throughout the neighborhood. Friends and family celebrated her act of kindness, but for Leila, the experience was just the first step on a path she never imagined she would take. Join us for part 2, where Leila begins to grapple with her newfound recognition and the responsibilities that come with being a hero. She discovers that helping others is a journey filled with challenges and triumphs that will shape her character in ways she never expected. The ripple effect of bravery. In the days that followed Leila Johnson's brave act of saving Mrs. Harper, her life changed in ways she could never have anticipated. The once quiet suburban neighborhood of Maple Street buzzed with whispers of her heroic deed. Leila became the talk of the town, a small figure who had managed to accomplish something that most adults would struggle to do. With every story shared, Leila's heart swelled a little more with pride, but she also began to feel the weight of newfound expectations. The Monday after the incident, Leila stepped onto the school bus, her usual bubbly energy tempered by the knowing glances of her classmates. As she took her seat, Mia sat down beside her, grinning widely. "You're famous, Leila. Everyone is talking about you." Leila blushed, unsure of how to respond. "I didn't do anything special, Mia. I just helped Mrs. Harper." "Just helped? You saved her," Mia insisted, her voice rising in excitement. "You're like a superhero. What's your superpower?" Leila chuckled, brushing off the compliment, but inside, she felt a flicker of something more profound than embarrassment, something akin to responsibility. What did it mean to be a hero? Could she live up to the title? As they arrived at school, the atmosphere shifted. Leila could feel the stares of her peers. Some whispered in awe, while others approached her with wide eyes, eager to hear every detail of the story. "Tell me what happened," one girl exclaimed, her hands clasped in excitement. "Were you scared?" Leila nodded, recalling the fear she felt as she had looked at Mrs. Harper. "I was really scared, but I just did what I thought was right," she explained, her voice trembling slightly. As the day wore on, Leila found herself the center of attention in class. Her teacher, Mrs. Johnson, praised her during morning announcements. "Today, we want to celebrate a very brave young lady in our class. Leila Johnson showed tremendous courage when she helped a neighbor in need. Let's give her a round of applause." Leela's cheeks flushed as her classmates clapped and cheered. For a moment, she felt like she was on top of the world. Yet, beneath the applause, a nagging thought tugged at her. Was she really deserving of this praise? The rest of the week continued in a similar fashion. Layla received countless messages from friends and neighbors, all praising her courage. A few even brought her small gifts: a shiny sticker, a homemade cookie, and a colorful bracelet. It was overwhelming, and while Leela appreciated the affection, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had simply done what anyone else would have done in her shoes. One afternoon, while at home, Leela sat on her bedroom floor, surrounded by her toys. As she absent-mindedly played with her stuffed animals, she felt a weight on her heart. The thrill of her newfound fame had begun to fade, replaced by a deeper sense of introspection. What did it mean to be a hero? The question lingered in her mind, urging her to dig deeper. That evening, Leela approached her mother in the kitchen, where she was preparing dinner. "Mom," she began hesitantly, "what does it mean to be a hero?" Her mother paused, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "That's a big question, Leela. A hero isn't just someone who does something brave. A hero is someone who acts selflessly and helps others, even when it's hard. It's about kindness, compassion, and standing up for what's right." Leela pondered her mother's words, feeling a sense of clarity wash over her. "But what if I can't always be brave like that?" she asked softly. Her mother knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Bravery comes in many forms, sweetheart. It can be a big action like saving someone, or it can be small, like being there for a friend or standing up for someone who's being treated unfairly. It's about making choices that reflect your values, no matter how small." The warmth in her mother's voice soothed Leela's anxieties. She began to see that being a hero didn't have to be a grand act every time. It could also be the little things she did each day. Inspired by this revelation, Leela decided that she wanted to take action, not just for the sake of recognition, but because she genuinely cared about her community. The very next day, she gathered her friends, including Mia, for a meeting in her backyard. "Okay, everyone, I've been thinking," Leela began, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "What if we created a kindness club? We could help people in our neighborhood, just like I helped Mrs. Harper." Mia's face lit up. "That sounds amazing. We could do all sorts of things, like picking up trash, helping elderly neighbors with their groceries, or even volunteering at the animal shelter." The idea quickly spread like wildfire, and soon enough, Layla's backyard was filled with laughter and excitement as her friends brainstormed ideas. The Kindness Club was born, and every weekend, they would plan different activities to help their community. The first weekend, they decided to visit Mrs. Harper. Leela, Mia, and a few others gathered flowers from their gardens and baked cookies to bring along. As they approached Mrs. Harper's house, Leela's heart raced with anticipation. When Mrs. Harper opened the door, her face lit up with joy. "Oh, my sweet Leela, what a wonderful surprise!" she exclaimed, pulling Leela into a warm embrace. Leela felt a rush of happiness at Mrs. Harper's reaction. "We just wanted to check on you and bring you some goodies," she said, beaming. The elderly woman welcomed them inside, where they spent the afternoon sharing stories, laughter, and delicious treats. Leela could see the happiness in Mrs. Harper's eyes, and it made her heart swell with pride. It was in these moments that Leela realized the true essence of heroism: creating joy, fostering connections, and spreading kindness. As the weeks went by, the Kindness Club became a weekly highlight for Leela and her friends. They organized neighborhood cleanups, created care packages for families in need, and even started a book drive to collect books for the local library. The more they engaged with their community, the more Leela felt a sense of purpose and fulfillment. However, with their growing popularity, Leela began to notice some kids in her school who were not as supportive. Some of her classmates rolled their eyes or made snide comments about the Hero Club, suggesting that Leela was just looking for attention. At first, the negativity hurt Leela's feelings, but she reminded herself of her mother's words. One day after school, Leela sat with Mia on a park bench, feeling the weight of the world on her small shoulders. Why do some kids have to be so mean? We're just trying to help. Mia frowned, her brow furrowed in concern. You know what? Those kids are just jealous because they don't understand how special what we're doing is. Let's not let them get us down. Leela took a deep breath, feeling grateful for her supportive friend. You're right. We can't let them stop us from doing good. With renewed determination, Leela decided to channel her feelings into a project that would showcase the positive impact of the Kindness Club. They organized a community event called Maple Street Day of Kindness, where everyone in the neighborhood could come together to participate in various activities that would uplift one another. Weeks of planning led to the big day, and excitement filled the air. Leela and her friends set up booths for different activities, from a bake sale to a craft corner for kids to create cards for seniors in the community. They even arranged a small stage for performances, inviting talented neighbors to showcase their skills. As the event began, the neighborhood buzzed with energy. Leela felt a thrill of happiness as families came together, laughing and connecting with one another. The love and camaraderie enveloped the park like a warm blanket. Just as Leela was enjoying the festivities, she spotted Mrs. Harper in the crowd, beaming with pride. The elderly woman approached Leela, her eyes twinkling. Look at what you've done, dear. This is simply wonderful. Leela felt a surge of joy at Mrs. Harper's words. I wanted everyone to see how kindness can make a difference, she replied, her heart swelling. Mrs. Harper took Leela's hands in hers, her expression serious. You have a gift, Leela. Your bravery and kindness will inspire others. Never forget the power you hold within you. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the event, Leela realized that her act of bravery had sparked something much larger than she could have imagined. She had become a catalyst for change in her community, and in doing so, she was learning more about herself than she ever expected. With every passing day, Leela was discovering that being a hero wasn't just about one big moment. It was about the continuous choice to make the world a better place, one act of kindness at a time. And as she stood in the midst of her neighborhood, surrounded by friends, laughter, and love, she knew this was just the beginning. Join us for Part 3, where Leela faces unexpected challenges as her Kindness Club grows, leading her to discover the true meaning of resilience and strength in the face of adversity. The journey of bravery and kindness will take Leela to new heights as she learns that every hero faces trials that shape their character. Trials and triumphs. As the Maple Street Day of Kindness event wrapped up, Leela Johnson felt a sense of accomplishment that was difficult to put into words. The park buzzed with laughter, families enjoyed their time together, and the air was filled with the sweet aroma of baked goods. Leela's heart swelled with pride, knowing that she had sparked something wonderful in her community. However, in the back of her mind, she couldn't shake the feeling that challenges lay ahead. In the days following the event, Leela and her friends continued their efforts with the Kindness Club, planning activities that fostered connection and goodwill. They visited nursing homes, hosted bake sales for charity, and even organized a talent show featuring local kids. But as their popularity grew, so did the challenges they faced. One afternoon, as Leela and Mia were setting up for a movie night in the park, they overheard some older kids talking nearby. Those kids think they're so special, one of them sneered. What do they know about helping anyone? They're just doing it for attention. Leela's heart sank. She looked at Mia, who seemed equally hurt by the comments. Why do they have to be so mean? We're trying to make a difference, Leela whispered. Mia shrugged, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. People often don't understand what we're doing. They don't see the impact we're making. As the weeks went on, Leela found it increasingly challenging to ignore the negativity. Whispers in the hallways and snide remarks during school began to seep into her heart, and soon enough, the joy of helping others was overshadowed by the fear of judgment. She started to second-guess herself, wondering if she was truly making a difference or just putting on a show for others. One day after school, Leela found herself sitting on her bed, staring blankly at the wall. She felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her as she pondered her next steps. Just then, her mother walked in, noticing Leela's troubled expression. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked gently. "I don't know, Mom. I feel like I'm trying so hard to help, but it doesn't seem to matter. Some kids at school say we're just pretending to be heroes," Leela admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Her mother sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Sweetheart, you can't control what others say. What matters is the impact you're making and how you feel about it. Remember, being a hero isn't just about the applause. It's about the heart behind your actions." Leela thought about her mother's words and felt a flicker of hope reignite within her. Perhaps she was focusing too much on external validation, rather than the true purpose of the Kindness Club. That night, as she drifted off to sleep, Leela resolved to refocus on the joy of giving, not on the opinions of others. The next Saturday, Leela and Mia gathered with their friends for their weekly meeting. "Okay, everyone, I have an idea," Leela announced, her voice filled with enthusiasm. "Let's create a kindness wall at the community center where people can share their stories of kindness and gratitude." The idea was met with a chorus of excited chatter, and soon enough, they were brainstorming ways to make it happen. Lila's heart soared as she felt the familiar spark of inspiration and camaraderie among her friends. After a few weeks of hard work, the kindness wall was complete. They decorated it with colorful paper and invited community members to write their stories on sticky notes and post them for everyone to see. The wall quickly became a vibrant tapestry of kindness, filled with heartfelt messages from people expressing gratitude for the little acts of love they received. The opening day for the kindness wall was a huge success, and Leela felt a renewed sense of purpose. As she stood in front of the wall, reading the notes filled with stories of generosity and support, she realized that kindness was indeed contagious. However, not everything was smooth sailing. One afternoon, during a routine meeting at the community center, Leela noticed a group of older kids lurking in the corner, snickering at her and her friends. It was the same group that had made comments before, and Leela felt her heart race with anxiety. "Why do you keep doing this?" one of the boys shouted, drawing the attention of the others. "Do you really think you're changing the world with your little club? It's embarrassing." Leela took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "We're just trying to help our community," she replied, her voice steady but shaky. "If you don't want to join us, that's fine, but you don't have to be mean." The boy smirked, his friends laughing behind him. "Oh please, like we'd want to be part of your little kindness club. It's lame." Just then, Mia stepped forward, her eyes blazing with determination. "You don't have to be part of it, but it doesn't mean what we're doing is lame. We're making a difference, and that's what matters." Leela felt a swell of pride for her friend's bravery, but she could also see the hurt in Mia's eyes. The confrontation took an emotional toll, and Leela felt tears prick her own eyes. But before she could react, the older kids shrugged it off, turning away and walking out of the community center. In the aftermath of the incident, Leela felt drained. That evening, she sat with her mother again, feeling defeated. "Mom, why do people have to be so mean? I thought helping would bring everyone together, but it feels like we're just being pushed away." Her mother gently took her hand, squeezing it reassuringly. "Sometimes, Leela, people act out of fear or insecurity. They may feel threatened by what you're doing because it challenges their way of thinking. But remember, the kindness you're spreading is powerful. Don't let negativity dim your light." Inspired by her mother's words, Leela realized that she had a choice. She could let the negativity discourage her or use it as fuel to strengthen her resolve. With renewed determination, she decided to turn the negativity into a learning opportunity for herself and her friends. The following week, Leela organized a special meeting focused on resilience. "Let's not allow the negativity of others to stop us," she told her friends. Instead, let's show them that kindness is stronger than meanness. We can rise above it. The group brainstormed ideas on how to tackle the negativity and spread positivity even further. They decided to host a kindness challenge in their school, encouraging classmates to perform random acts of kindness and share their experiences. The challenge would culminate in a school assembly where participants could share their stories. As the kindness challenge kicked off, Lila was filled with excitement and anticipation. Her friends rallied behind her, and soon enough, students were participating enthusiastically. From helping teachers carry supplies to writing encouraging notes for each other, the school transformed into a sea of kindness. On the day of the assembly, Layla took the stage, her heart pounding with both nervousness and excitement. "Thank you all for participating in the kindness challenge," she began, her voice steady. "We may face negativity, but together we can create a wave of positivity that no one can ignore. Remember, kindness is a strength, not a weakness." The crowd erupted into applause, and Leela felt a rush of pride wash over her. She knew that the journey wouldn't be easy, but as she looked out at her peers, she realized that they were all in it together. In the following weeks, the positive energy continued to spread throughout the school and the community. Lila and her friends saw their efforts beginning to pay off, as even the older kids who had initially mocked them started to change their tune. Some of them approached Leela, offering apologies and even asking if they could join the kindness club. As spring turned to summer, Leela felt a profound sense of fulfillment wash over her. She had learned that being a hero wasn't just about one grand act. It was about perseverance, resilience, and the continuous choice to spread kindness in the face of adversity. Join us for Part 4, where Leela faces her biggest challenge yet. As she navigates the complexities of friendship, jealousy, and personal growth, she will learn that true heroism often requires confronting one's fears and standing up for what is right, even when the stakes are high. A new path. The days following Leela's heroic rescue of Mrs. Harper passed in a blur of excitement and newfound purpose. The story of the young girl who saved an elderly woman had traveled far beyond Maple Street, inspiring local news outlets to share the tale. Leela had become a symbol of hope and courage in her community, and her actions resonated with many who heard her story. Yet, as the spotlight faded, Leela felt a shift within herself, a desire to channel her newfound recognition into something more meaningful. One afternoon, as she pedaled her bright yellow bike through the neighborhood, Leela spotted a familiar figure sitting on a porch, her head bowed. It was Mrs. Harper, still recovering from her ordeal. Lila's heart ached at the sight of the once vibrant woman who had become a shell of her former self. She had lost much in the accident, including her sense of independence. Leela hopped off her bike and approached Mrs. Harper. "Hi, Mrs. Harper. How are you feeling today?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. Mrs. Harper looked up, a faint smile appearing on her lips. "Oh, Lila, dear, I'm doing as well as can be expected. Just trying to adjust to everything." "Would you like some company?" Leela asked, her eyes sparkling with hope. "That would be lovely," Mrs. Harper replied, her voice warm yet tinged with sadness. Leela sat beside her, and they began to talk. Lila shared stories about her friends, the Kindness Club, and the projects they were planning. As Mrs. Harper listened, her eyes lit up with interest, and for the first time since the accident, she seemed engaged and animated. Leela felt a spark of joy in her heart. If she could make Mrs. Harper smile, then maybe there was more she could do. "Mrs. Harper, what if we worked on something together? You could help us plan a project for the Kindness Club," Leela proposed, her excitement bubbling over. Mrs. Harper's expression brightened. "Oh, that sounds wonderful. I have always loved gardening. I could help you create a community garden. It would be a lovely way to bring people together." The idea took root in Leela's mind, and together they began to sketch out plans for a community garden that would not only beautify the neighborhood, but also foster a sense of togetherness. They envisioned a space where children and adults could come together to plant flowers, vegetables, and herbs. It would be a place of learning, growth, and community connection, a perfect way for Mrs. Harper to regain her sense of purpose. Over the next few weeks, Leila and Mrs. Harper worked tirelessly on their project. Lila brought her friends from the Kindness Club on board, and soon, the initiative blossomed into a community effort. Flyers were distributed around Maple Street, inviting everyone to join them in creating the garden. The response was overwhelming. Families, children, and even local businesses came together to support the cause. One sunny Saturday morning, the day of the garden's inaugural planting arrived. The air buzzed with excitement as volunteers gathered in a vacant lot at the heart of Maple Street, their arms laden with gardening tools, seeds, and soil. Lila stood at the center, her heart swelling with pride as she surveyed the crowd. "Thank you all for being here today. This garden isn't just about growing plants, it's about growing our community," she exclaimed. The crowd cheered, and Leila felt a rush of energy as they prepared to transform the lot. With shovels in hand, they dug into the earth, laughter and chatter filling the air. Mrs. Harper moved gracefully among the volunteers, offering guidance and sharing stories of her own gardening adventures. Lila watched as the older woman began to regain her confidence, her spirit shining through once again. As the sun climbed higher, rows of vibrant flowers and budding vegetables began to take shape. Each plant represented not just the effort of those present, but also the power of community. As Leila planted a sunflower seed, she couldn't help but feel that this was only the beginning of something special. Days turned into weeks, and the garden flourished under the watchful care of its creators. Leila and her friends organized weekly events, inviting neighbors to come together for gardening workshops, picnics, and even storytelling sessions in the shade of the growing plants. Mrs. Harper took the lead on many of these activities, sharing her knowledge and wisdom with the children who adored her. But the garden was more than just a place to grow flowers. It became a sanctuary for the community. Neighbors who had once only exchanged polite nods on the street now gathered regularly, forging friendships and strengthening bonds. They shared recipes, gardening tips, and laughter, and the spirit of kindness continued to blossom. As summer rolled on, Leila watched with awe as the garden transformed not only the landscape but also the lives of those who nurtured it. One day, while tending to the roses, Leila noticed a young boy sitting on the edge of the lot, looking forlorn. She approached him, kneeling beside him. "Hey there, what's wrong?" Leila asked gently. "I just moved here, and I don't know anyone," the boy replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Leila's heart ached for him. "You know what? You can come help us in the garden. We have fun planting flowers, and you'll make lots of friends. What's your name?" "David," he said, a small smile beginning to form on his lips. "Come on, David. We're about to plant some daisies, and I bet you'd be a pro at it," Leila encouraged, extending her hand. As they joined the other kids, Leila realized that the garden had created a space where anyone could belong. It was a lesson she hoped to share with everyone. Kindness has the power to connect people, heal wounds, and create lasting change. Weeks later, the garden held its first community celebration. Neighbors gathered, their faces lit up with joy as they shared delicious food and stories. Mrs. Harper stood proudly at the center, her heart full as she watched the community come alive. Leila stepped up to the makeshift podium, her voice ringing clear. "Thank you all for believing in this garden and each other. This isn't just a place to grow plants. It's a place to grow friendships and kindness. Let's continue to spread love and joy in our community." Applause erupted, and Leila felt a warmth swell in her chest. She knew that the seeds of kindness planted in their garden would continue to grow far beyond the boundaries of Maple Street. As the evening settled in, and the stars began to twinkle above, Leila sat beside Mrs. Harper, who looked content. "Thank you, Leila," she said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "You've given me a new lease on life." Leila smiled, knowing that together they had not only saved a life that day, but had also transformed their community into a garden of hope, resilience, and love. Their journey was a reminder that sometimes a small act of kindness can blossom into something beautiful, changing lives and shaping futures in ways they never imagined. Facing the unknown. As summer break approached, the Maple Street community was buzzing with excitement. Leila Johnson, now a well-known figure in her neighborhood thanks to her relentless spirit of kindness, felt invigorated. The Kindness Club was thriving, and the Kindness Wall at the community center had transformed into a vibrant mosaic of stories and experiences, reflecting the hearts of all who contributed. However, despite this overwhelming positivity, Leila found herself standing on the precipice of an unexpected challenge that would test her courage in ways she had never anticipated. One afternoon, as the sun hung low in the sky and cast a golden glow over Maple Street, Leila and her friends were gathered in the park for their weekly meeting. Mia arrived, her face flushed with excitement. "Guess what, everyone? There's going to be a community talent show next month. We should definitely participate." The group buzzed with enthusiasm, and ideas flowed like a river. Some suggested singing, others talked about magic tricks or dance routines. Leila, however, felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. She had always enjoyed performing, but the idea of being on stage in front of a large crowd made her stomach churn. "Leila, what about you? What do you want to do?" Maya asked, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. I don't know yet," Leila stammered, glancing down at her hands. The thought of performing made her anxious, especially after everything that had transpired over the past few months. What if she forgot her lines? What if the audience didn't like her performance? Seeing Leila's hesitation, Mia placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Hey, remember when you saved Mrs. Harper? You were brave then, and you can be brave now. You can do this." Leila felt a flicker of inspiration, but still struggled to see herself as the performer she once was. As the meeting progressed, the idea of participating in the talent show gnawed at her, yet the doubts and fears loomed larger. In the days that followed, Leila watched her friends practice their acts with enthusiasm. Mia was practicing a dance routine, and others were rehearsing songs or skits. Their laughter and joy were infectious. But as Leila watched from the sidelines, the anxiety continued to build within her. The more she put off deciding on an act, the more difficult it became to imagine stepping onto that stage. One evening, sitting at the kitchen table with her mother, Leila expressed her concerns. "Mom, everyone is so talented, and I don't even know what to do for the show. What if I embarrass myself?" Her mother smiled warmly, understanding the weight of her daughter's fears. "Leila, remember that everyone feels nervous before performing. It's normal. What's important is to choose something that makes you happy. Think about what you love most, what brings you joy." Leila thought for a moment, considering her mother's words. She had always found solace in storytelling and sharing her thoughts through writing. "Maybe I could write and perform a poem about kindness," she suggested tentatively, her heart racing at the thought. "That sounds beautiful," her mother exclaimed. "You have such a gift with words, Leila. I believe in you." Emboldened by her mother's support, Leila began to draft her poem, pouring her heart into the verses. As she wrote about kindness, resilience, and the power of community, she found herself lost in the beauty of her words. Slowly, her confidence began to build. The days turned into weeks, and the day of the talent show finally arrived. Leila stood backstage, her heart pounding in her chest as she listened to the applause from the audience. The stage was bright, and the laughter of her friends mingled with the buzz of excitement in the air. But as her turn approached, a familiar wave of doubt crashed over her. "Leila, you got this. Just breathe," Mia whispered, giving her a reassuring smile. Leila took a deep breath, stepping onto the stage, the spotlight warming her face. The audience was filled with familiar faces, friends, and family who had supported her throughout her journey. She glanced down at the note cards in her hands, feeling the warmth of their encouragement, but her heart raced as she opened her mouth to speak. "Hi everyone, my name is Leila Johnson, "And I'm going to share a poem about kindness," she began, her voice wavering slightly. The audience fell silent, their attention focused entirely on her. As she recited her poem, Layla's nerves began to fade, and she found herself immersed in her words. Each line flowed effortlessly, a reflection of her heart and her experiences. The room resonated with her emotions, and Layla could see smiles and nods of understanding from her friends and family. When she finished, the applause erupted like a wave crashing against the shore. Layla beamed with pride, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. She had faced her fears and emerged victorious, not just in performing, but in expressing her truth. After the show, Layla was greeted by her friends, who enveloped her in a warm group hug. "You were amazing," Mia exclaimed, her eyes shining with joy. "I knew you could do it." Just as the celebration was in full swing, Layla spotted a familiar face in the crowd, the boy from the older group who had mocked them before. He was standing with his friends, watching her with a different expression this time, one of respect and admiration. "Layla," he called out, taking a step forward. "That was really good. I didn't know you had it in you. Can I join the Kindness Club?" Layla blinked, momentarily taken aback. The last time they had interacted, the boy had been dismissive and rude. Now he stood there, vulnerable and sincere. "Of course," she replied, her heart swelling with compassion. "We'd love to have you." As the night continued, Layla found herself reflecting on the power of kindness and how it had transformed not just her community, but her life as well. She had faced her fears, stood up for what she believed in, and inspired others along the way. The following week, Layla and her friends continued to meet and grow the Kindness Club, now welcoming new members, including the boy who had initially mocked them. Together, they brainstormed ideas for their next project, determined to keep the spirit of kindness alive. As they sat around a table at the community center, brainstorming ideas for their next initiative, Layla felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had faced the unknown, emerged stronger, and found new friendships along the way. It was a reminder that true heroism often lay in the willingness to embrace vulnerability, foster compassion, and inspire others through kindness. The power of unity. As summer continued to unfold in Maple Street, Layla Johnson had blossomed into a young leader. The Kindness Club thrived with new members and innovative projects. With each passing week, the group engaged in activities that spread joy throughout the community, organizing food drives, planting community gardens, and offering tutoring to younger children. Layla felt proud of her role, and the club was a beacon of positivity in a world that sometimes felt filled with negativity. However, as the warm days of summer drifted toward the end of the season, an unexpected challenge arose that would test not only Layla's leadership, but also the very fabric of her community. One sweltering afternoon, the sky darkened suddenly, and an ominous storm rolled in. Layla was at the community center with Mia and a few other club members, finalizing plans for their next big project, a community picnic meant to celebrate the summer's achievements. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows as rain began to pour. The sudden change in weather seemed to mirror Layla's growing unease. As the storm intensified, they began to notice the first signs of trouble. The power flickered before going out entirely, plunging the community center into darkness. Panic ensued, and the group huddled together, exchanging worried glances. Layla felt her heart race. "What if someone needs help?" she asked, biting her lip. Mia, trying to remain calm, suggested they check on their neighbors. "We can use our flashlights. Let's make sure everyone is okay," she said, her voice filled with determination. The group grabbed their flashlights and made their way outside into the storm, which had become a torrential downpour. As they walked down Maple Street, they could see the chaos unfolding around them. Trees were uprooted, and branches littered the ground. The sound of sirens echoed in the distance, but most distressing of all was the sight of a nearby house, one that belonged to Mrs. Harper, the elderly woman Layla had helped before. "Mrs. Harper," Leela shouted, her voice almost lost in the wind. They hurried toward the house, their hearts pounding with concern. As they approached, Lila's worst fears were confirmed. Part of Mrs. Harper's roof had collapsed, and she was trapped inside, her cries for help barely audible above the storm's roar. "Stay back. We need to call for help," Mia shouted, but Leela felt a surge of bravery. She refused to stand idly by when someone was in danger. "No, we can't just leave her. We need to get her out." With her heart pounding in her chest, Leela led the way into the house, navigating through debris with Mia and the others close behind. They found Mrs. Harper in her living room, her frail body pinned beneath a fallen beam. The sight made Leila's stomach twist with fear, but she pushed it aside. "Mrs. Harper, we're here. We're going to get you out," Leila called, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. Mrs. Harper looked up, relief flooding her features. "Oh, thank you, dear. I thought I'd be trapped forever." "We'll lift the beam together," Mia instructed, taking charge. "Everyone, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. With a collective effort, they lifted the beam just enough for Mrs. Harper to crawl free. As she stumbled into Leila's arms, tears filled the elderly woman's eyes. Thank you so much." Just then, they heard a loud crack overhead. Lila's heart sank as she realized the storm had caused more damage than they could see. "We need to get out of here now," she shouted, ushering everyone outside. They hurried back into the rain, Leila's heart racing as she held Mrs. Harper's hand tightly. Once outside, they made their way to the safety of the street, where the storm's fury continued to unleash. But just as they thought they were in the clear, they heard a loud crash. Another tree had fallen nearby, blocking their escape route. Leila's mind raced. "We have to find another way," she cried, panic threatening to overwhelm her. Mia, breathing heavily, looked around, trying to find a solution. "We can head to the park. It's just down the street." As they began to make their way toward the park, Leila couldn't shake the feeling of dread. What if they couldn't make it? What if someone else needed help? But as she glanced back at Mrs. Harper, who was struggling to keep pace, determination surged within her. "We can't give up. We have to keep moving." Finally, they'd reached the park, which had become a temporary shelter for others seeking safety. It was buzzing with activity as families gathered, looking for loved ones. The local emergency services had also arrived, their sirens blaring in the distance. Leila took a deep breath, her heart racing. "We need to help everyone," she shouted, feeling a wave of adrenaline rush through her. "Let's check if anyone else needs assistance." As they spread out, Leila moved through the crowd, her flashlight illuminating the faces of her neighbors. She listened to their stories, offering support where she could. It was in that moment that she realized the true power of community, how people came together in times of crisis, uniting to help one another. Hours passed, and the storm began to subside. Leila and her friends worked tirelessly, helping those who had lost their homes or were in distress. They coordinated with local emergency responders, ensuring everyone received the assistance they needed. Leila's heart swelled with pride as she witnessed the resilience of her community, the kindness and support that flourished even in the darkest of moments. Eventually, the storm cleared, and the sun began to break through the clouds. Leila stood at the park's edge, exhaustion creeping into her bones, but a sense of fulfillment washed over her. The Kindness Club had been tested in ways they could have never anticipated, and they had risen to the occasion. As Leila looked around, she noticed her friends, Mia, the boy from the older group, and even Mrs. Harper, gathering together, sharing stories and laughter despite the circumstances. In that moment, Leila felt a warmth in her heart, knowing that they had created something powerful, a community bound by kindness, resilience, and hope. Later that evening, as the sun set and cast a warm glow over the park, Leila gathered everyone for a debriefing. "I'm so proud of each and every one of you," she began, her voice steady. Today, we faced something none of us expected, but we did it together. Kindness isn't just a word, it's an action. And today, we showed the true meaning of kindness. Applause erupted, and Leela felt tears welling in her eyes. Let's continue to support one another, not just during storms, but every day. We've proven that we can be there for our neighbors and friends. Together, we are stronger. As the evening wore on, Leela felt a renewed sense of purpose. She understood that the lessons learned during the storm would stay with her forever. The journey of kindness was not always easy, but it was always worth it. As they left the park that night, Leela glanced back, a smile forming on her face. The challenges they faced only strengthened the bonds they had built. From that day forward, the Kindness Club became more than just a group of friends. They became a family dedicated to uplifting one another and spreading kindness throughout Maple Street. In the months that followed, Leela and her friends continued to make a difference, but now they did so with a newfound sense of unity. They organized a community festival to celebrate their resilience and to honor everyone who had come together during the storm. The festival became an annual event where stories of bravery and kindness were shared, and the community thrived. As Leela stood in front of the crowd during the festival, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. Thank you all for being here today. We are a community that knows the power of kindness, and we will continue to rise above any challenge together. And with that, Leela knew that the true essence of her journey was not just about being a hero, but about inspiring others to join her in the pursuit of kindness, empathy, and love.